The year is 1645, a time of great turmoil and uncertainty. England is embroiled in a bitter civil war, with families and communities torn apart by the conflict. Amidst the chaos and fear, a sinister figure emerges, Matthew Hopkins, the self-proclaimed Witchfinder general. He saw an opportunity to exploit the fear and confusion for his own gain. Hopkins capitalized on the turbulent times, igniting a reign of terror across East Anglia with his relentless pursuit of witches. Villages were gripped by fear as accusations flew and trials were held. He left a trail of misery and death in his wake, with countless innocent lives destroyed by his actions. Families mourned their lost loved ones and communities were left in ruins. This is the story of the infamous Witchfinder general, a tale of superstition, opportunism, and the darkest aspects of human nature. Hopkins' rise to power was swift and ruthless. Hopkins' methods were as cruel as they were absurd. He used torture and intimidation to extract confessions, often from terrified and innocent people. He preyed on the fears and ignorance of the time, exploiting them for his own gain. The villagers, already living in fear, were easy targets for his manipulations. His story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of critical thinking, even in the face of fear and uncertainty. It is a cautionary tale that echoes through the ages, reminding us to question and to seek the truth. To understand Matthew Hopkins' rise, we must first delve into the tumultuous world of 17th century England. The English Civil War, a bloody conflict between parliamentarians and royalists, had plunged the nation into chaos. Suspicion and paranoia were rife. People were grappling with disease, poverty, and the breakdown of traditional social structures. In these uncertain times, fear became a powerful weapon. Belief in witchcraft was widespread. It offered a convenient explanation for misfortune and hardship. People believed witches could curse livestock, blight crops, and bring illness upon their enemies. This widespread fear created fertile ground for Hopkins' brand of witch hunting. Hopkins was not content with merely accusing people based on hearsay or superstition. He developed a chillingly systematic approach to identifying witches, outlined in his book, The Discovery of Witches. This manual, published in 1647, became a chilling guidebook for aspiring witch hunters. It detailed his methods, which were as bizarre as they were cruel. Hopkins' methods included sleep deprivation, forcing victims to walk until they collapsed, and searching for witch marks, any unusual blemish or mole on the body. He believed these marks were proof of a pact with the devil. One of Hopkins's most infamous techniques was the swimming test. Accused witches were tied up and thrown into a body of water. If they floated, they were considered guilty. The logic was as twisted as it was flawed. Water, being pure, would reject a witch. Innocent people were essentially drowned to prove their innocence. Hopkins also placed great importance on the discovery of familiars. These were believed to be demonic animals that served as companions and assistants to witches. Any pet, however ordinary, could be deemed a familiar. This led to the senseless killing of countless animals. Section 5. Profiting from paranoia, the lucrative business of witch hunting. Hopkins was not driven by religious zeal or a genuine belief in his mission. He was a businessman, and his business was fear. He charged local authorities hefty fees for his services. This made him a wealthy man, but at a terrible human cost. His pursuit of wealth fueled his witch hunt. Hopkins and his associates traveled from town to town, terrorizing communities and leaving a trail of shattered lives behind. They were handsomely rewarded for their services, proving that fear, once ignited, could be incredibly profitable. Section 6. Terror in the countryside. The devastating impact of Hopkins's accusations. The impact of Hopkins's witch hunts on the English countryside was devastating. Fear and suspicion gripped entire communities. Neighbors turned on each other, accusing one another based on the flimsiest of evidence. The mere whisper of an accusation could lead to imprisonment, torture, and even death. Women, particularly those on the margins of society, were the primary targets of Hopkins' accusations. Elderly women, widows, and those who were poor, eccentric, or simply disliked were particularly vulnerable. Hopkins' reign of terror left an indelible mark on the social fabric of East Anglia. Section 7. Echoes of Salem. Witch hunts across time and oceans. The dark legacy of witch hunts is a haunting chapter in human history, spanning continents and centuries. Hopkins' reign of terror in England has chilling parallels with other witch hunts throughout history, most notably the Salem witch trials in Massachusetts, which took place a few decades later. In both instances, fear and superstition gripped entire communities, leading to tragic consequences for many innocent people. Like Hopkins, the accusers in Salem used dubious methods, including spectral evidence, the ability of witnesses to see the accused in their dreams or visions to condemn innocent people. This so-called evidence was often nothing more than the product of overactive imaginations or personal vendettas, yet it held immense power in the courts of the time. Both events highlight the dangers of mass hysteria and the ease with which fear and suspicion can be manipulated for personal or political gain. The collective panic that ensued in these communities shows how quickly reason can be abandoned when fear takes hold. They serve as stark reminders of the fragility of justice and the importance of critical thinking in the face of unfounded accusations. These historical episodes urge us to reflect on our own times and the ways in which fear and misinformation can still influence society today. By studying these dark chapters, we can learn valuable lessons about the need for vigilance and the protection of individual rights. Section 8. The legacy of a witch hunter, Hopkins' enduring influence. Matthew Hopkins died in 1647, but his legacy of cruelty and injustice lived on. He left behind a trail of broken lives and shattered communities. His methods, though condemned by many at the time, continued to influence witch hunts for years to come. His book, The Discovery of Witches, remained in circulation, perpetuating his harmful ideas. Hopkins' story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of skepticism in the face of the unknown. His life and crimes remind us that even in the darkest of times we must hold on to reason and compassion. Section 9. Challenging the narrative. Were there other factors at play? While Hopkins undoubtedly played a significant role in the witch hunts, it's important to remember that he didn't operate in a vacuum. His rise to prominence was facilitated by a complex interplay of social, economic, and religious factors. The English Civil War created an atmosphere of fear and instability, making people more susceptible to superstition and accusations. Economic hardship and social tensions also played a part. Accusing someone of witchcraft could be a way to settle personal scores, eliminate rivals, or seize their property. Hopkins exploited these existing tensions, turning neighbor against neighbor for his own gain. Section 10. The decline of witch hunts. Reason prevails over superstition. Thankfully, the tide began to turn against witch hunts in the late 17th century. Enlightenment ideas emphasizing reason and scientific inquiry gradually gained traction. People began to question the validity of accusations based on superstition and spectral evidence. Juries became more reluctant to convict, and judges began to express skepticism about the existence of witchcraft. The publication of books and pamphlets debunking witchcraft further eroded public belief in its power. While the fear of witches didn't disappear overnight, it gradually lost its grip on society. Section 11. Conclusion. Lessons learned from a dark chapter. The story of Matthew Hopkins is a chilling reminder of the dangers of ignorance, fear, and the abuse of power. Known as the Witchfinder General, Hopkins exploited the paranoia of his time, leading to the wrongful persecution and execution of many innocent people. His reign of terror left a lasting scar on English history, serving as a cautionary tale about the importance of critical thinking, due process, and the protection of the innocent. The trials he conducted were often based on flimsy evidence and confessions extracted under duress, highlighting the perils of abandoning reason and justice. While we may never know the true extent of Hopkins's crimes, his story continues to resonate centuries later. It serves as a powerful reminder of the human capacity for cruelty when driven by fear and superstition. The echoes of his actions can still be felt in modern times, where similar patterns of scapegoating and hysteria can emerge. It reminds us that we must remain vigilant against injustice and fight against the forces of fear and superstition that can so easily take root in times of uncertainty. In today's world, where misinformation can spread rapidly, the lessons from Hopkins' era are more relevant than ever. The witch hunts serve as a stark warning from history, urging us to learn from the past and strive to create a more just and compassionate future. By remembering the victims and understanding the mechanisms of their persecution, we can work towards a society that values truth, justice, and empathy above all.